Okay, welcome everyone to our Thursday, April 27th special meeting of the Board of Spokane County Commissioners. It is 9:01. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. Commissioner Jordan is in the conference room. Commissioner French and I are here. Commissioner Waldrop and Commissioner Kearns are on Zoom as well. And so with this today, we just have a special meeting for one item. And so I don't think we don't have to do public comment or any of that, do we? Or do I need to open up for public comment?
No, this was properly noticed, and I do not believe any written comment was received.
Okay. So no written comment. Okay, with that then, I will look to my fellow commissioners. Does someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move to approve, let me pull it up here, apologize. Move to approve a resolution in the selection of Workday Inc. and Guidehouse Inc. providing enterprise resource planning, ERP software, and implementation services for Spokane County project number P13100.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for the resolution as just stated by Commissioner Kearns. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I just have a couple questions to ask.
Go ahead.
And part of it is the last briefing we had was kind of my first in-depth public presentation on this. So I just want to kind of recap a few things for the benefit of the public. And so this is a question for Ashley is, can you kind of recap what the employee engagement and consultation was as part of this, number of employees that worked on this and vetted the system?
Yep, absolutely. So this has been an 18-month evaluation process, and over the last 18 months, we've spent over 3,900 hours with county employee time, which included more than 75 employees across over 25 departments. We have worked with all of we have a steering committee that represents everyone from finance to HR to sheriffs to auditor, detention, public works. We have our subject matter experts across our entities. Our treasurer's office has been very actively involved. Community services, you name it, legal, right? We've included people from across the county. So I feel very good about the amount of people that we've included in this process that have been able to watch the presentations, ask their questions, understand our processes and future processes. So very large amount of employee groups to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. And
my recollection from your presentation was there's a number of other government agencies in Washington that use Workday, City of Seattle, Pierce County, Yakima, Vancouver. So can you just describe the county's due diligence in reaching out to any other municipalities or governments that may have the system and what the feedback has been, kind of checking references?
Yeah, so I've spoken with a number of people, and actually I just got a phone with Yakima again this morning. So we have chatted with others that have, whether they've recently migrated, which I have a few counterparts in California who have recently migrated in the last year, or those who have migrated over the last couple of years. For example, Yakima County, they've been on the new system for about 2 years. And I've had really good feedback as to the solution as it is. The biggest feedback that I'm getting from our counterparts are a lot of effort needs to go into the implementation and planning, which we understand that. And that's why we want to work with Guidehouse as that third-party expert that will help us through that process. A lot of the feedback has been, make sure you're not taking your existing processes today and trying to shove them in a new system because you're going to fail, right? And then you're going to have to clean up on the back end. So that's been very consistent feedback that I've gotten from everyone. And for those groups that have embraced the new technology, embraced efficiencies, they said that front end work has really been worth it. And on the back end, the system works beautifully. It's more efficient. They are streamlining the work that they're doing, a lot less redundancy, but it took a lot of that upfront work and focus working with the third-party consultants so that when they went live, when they flipped that switch, they were at that point. So really good feedback on the current system, but the biggest aha moments I've gotten from everyone I talked to is make sure you're not trying to replicate today's processes in a new system.
And I'll just keep going with a couple if it's okay, Madam Chair. What's the kind of plan in a nutshell to make sure that that implementation really includes the different departments and works for them? And I know that's part of the plan with bringing in a consultant, but what does that look like in a nutshell?
Yep, absolutely. So we have identified the subject matter experts across our departments that'll be included in this. So the way that the Workday and Guidehouse implementation works is we start with something called Base Camp. And Base Camp will be us being the county working with Guidehouse and Workday for the first few months actually, and sitting down. One, we have the benefit that GFOA, which was the group we contracted with early, has already mapped a lot of our current processes. So what we'll be doing is we'll be taking those current processes, we'll have the subject matters in the experts in the room with us, and we'll walk through what are we doing today, what do we need to do in the future, how do these solutions need to work, and how will we be using Workday to get our work done. So Base Camp will really do all of that initial mapping, so to speak. And then there's phases of the project itself. So once we go into mapping, and there's actually a really well-defined matrix that breaks down who we're going to need, whether it's a subject matter expert, a PM, department heads, what percentage of their time are we going to need, what does training time look like. So all of that is mapped out so that we have the right people plugged in at the right time throughout the build as well. Then we have a testing and training section that we have the subject matter experts identified in. Again, we'll have a training lead. So making sure that people get into training, they're doing the testing with our testing leads so that by the time we launch, the people that will be using the system have a really good grasp for the system. The other thing that we're doing during that process is building the training materials. Workday has a substantial amount of them already, but the county will also be partnering with that and really creating those user guides or process guides so that when we go live, we will have easy to follow steps for our employees to one, have training, but two, have reference guides that will enable them to be successful in our new system.
And my understanding is our current system is approximately 25 years old, or some of those systems, and where there's a lot of manual spreadsheet entry and things of that sort going on. You did mention in the last meeting that you're not looking to layoffs, but one thing I would like to have is a kind of regular report back, right, as to how the change is impacting employee work and a regular dialogue about how we can take advantage of the opportunities to focus employees on areas like grant writing, right, seeking new resources for the county. So is that something that we can do? I think that's something you're planning on.
Yeah, and actually that's one of the things I'm most excited about, to your point, to free up those resources that we're seeing duplicating and sometimes triplicating efforts right now is going to be amazing. And some of our departments have even recognized that. Shannon Berkey in Public Works was like, oh my gosh, I can see where I can slide people and we can focus on grants or on audits or accounting. So we have people that are already recognizing that. And when we get to that phase, we are planning on coming back and presenting that. Another really cool thing about this Workday process is we will be tracking our key indicators, so our KPIs, and be actually able to report out on that. So they have a solution that will enable us to really look at our efficiency gains, right? So where are we saving time, energy, effort, and then that will allow us to speak to where are we redirecting resources to capitalize on work and projects that we just aren't able to get to right now with our current headcounts. And especially as we see our county continue to grow, our citizen groups continue to grow, we know that we have lots of opportunity for other work. We just can't get to it right now. So we will definitely be able to report that information back to you as we get through the project, but then also in future years, what do those metrics continue to look like?
And then I have one more question, which is more of a global question, and thanks for that. On the terms of the contract related to kind of cancellation and termination, my understanding is it's a 15-year contract, so it's binding to participate in it. But how do those terms kind of reflect an industry standard, or what other municipalities who use this system have?
Yeah, so typically in the past, we saw prior to COVID, there was a lot of 5-year. And the last few years, we've seen more groups move to a 10-year contract. And now a few of us are starting to move to that 15-year. It's really because of pricing, though, is what especially government is looking at in municipalities is there a way for us to lock in pricing? Moving ERPs is obviously, sitting here today, not an easy feat, right? It's not something that you just decide you're going to shut one off and flip on a new one. And so often employers that are using these systems, similar to PeopleSoft, you're looking at long-term solutions. And so the 15-year mark for us is what we thought would be most optimal for the county, understanding that Workday agreed to a 2% increase on cost for years 9 through 15, which if you look at the actual renewal for most of these contracts, and I spoke to it a little bit in my presentation last week, you're looking at a 5 to 7% on average year over year. And even within the Workday contract, off the top of my head, I want to say it was CPI plus 3%, maybe 2, but regardless, much higher than 2%. And so understanding that the county has limited funding that we receive from our taxpayers, it is our recommendation that we move forward with a longer term contract to ensure that we are able to get pricing that is sustainable for Spokane County.
So that's the length of time, right? And the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any characterization we can make about the actual cancellation terms themselves being normal, for lack of a better word, for this type of contract?
In the legal contract review, we were able to obtain one of the other Workday contracts from the city of Olympia. And so that term was consistent with that contract as well. I guess we did not have other context or other contracts to compare it to, or competitors' contracts. So with this software specifically, I can't say that that's industry standard across the board, but it does appear to be consistent with the other contracts, other Workday contracts from other organizations.
And Chad Duffy is actually with Workday and he has his hand up, so.
Yeah, I was going to say that the termination clauses, that includes your fiscal funding clause and then other breach clauses, align with all of our other government clients, including state of Washington, UW, Wazoo, Olympia, Pierce County, San Bernardino, Escondido down in Southern California, city of LA. So it's very standard, and understand that fiscal funding clause is required, right? I mean, if you don't have the funds, we can't force you down that path. So.
Thanks, Chad.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so we do have to get going here. We've got, we're just borrowing a room for a few minutes. So, are there questions or comments that we have before we take the vote?
I think Casey may have a comment or question.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just had one question for Mr. Duffy. Mr. Duffy, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to know if the contract terms in this agreement, with the limited time that legal had we weren't able to do a comparative analysis of other agreements with other jurisdictions or with your competitors. Would you say that your contract is relatively industry standard with respect to your industry and your competitors' agreements?
Yes, these contracts have been built around the new model of the software as a service SaaS model, which is very different than buying a perpetual license.
That was my question.
Okay, is there any other questions before we vote? Amber, I see you.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to thank Ashley and all the different staff who've been working so hard to try and come up with a better solution for Spokane County. So I just wanted to acknowledge there's been a lot of hard work way before I got on the commission. And so I want to honor and thank that. And I appreciate everyone getting together to make this decision so that we can have a contract that's, as affordable as possible for the county and for our citizens. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly that, an accountant, this is will be a new day. I mean, I audited the county back when people first got in. We spreadsheet. This is going to be a great opportunity for the county forward and do the county that needs to be done. Seeing none, sorry, it's getting loud here. All those in favor of supporting the resolution? As
Aye.
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 I,
okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Commissioner Cooney, are we good to use your stamp?
For the contract, yes, and for the work contract and for the resolution.
Thank you.
And same for me.
And then Amber and Josh, if you could just raise your hand for that, or just, yes?
Yep, you can use my stamp.
Thank you.
yes, no problem. Thank you.
For very quick procedural clarification, currently the workday contract is set up to be signed by the chair of the board as opposed to majority of the board. The resolution is consistent with that. I wanted to make sure that the commissioners are, that's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good.
And that's what's in the, correct?
Yes, that's in the resolution. The resolution allows for either the chair of the board or a majority to sign. The current version of the contract we have has a signature block for the chair. So as long as the commissioners are aware of that and that is acceptable, then we don't need to do anything further.
Okay, very good. Anything else to come before the board? Seeing none?
Just a thank you from me as well. Really appreciate it, you guys. This was a long process, but thank you.
No, and you guys have done a great job. So really appreciate all the work on the whole team. So thank you very much. We'll adjourn the meeting.
Everyone,
Bye.
look forward to it.